very strongly the opposite, that in fact, it is incumbent upon us to do whatever we can in schools to help close the digital divide.
Are you a teacher who wants to start a podcast? The Podcast Planner for Teachers is your go-to resource for planning and brainstorming. It's packed with templates, worksheets, and checklists that will help you plan out your show from beginning to end. You don't need any experience or special equipment, just an idea and the drive to make it happen. With this planner, we want everyone who has ever wanted to start their own podcast but didn't know where to begin. We want every student in school today to learn about podcasts as they learn about other forms of media like TV shows and movies. And most importantly, we want teachers everywhere sharing their stories with students across the country through podcasts. Now is the perfect time for educators everywhere to get involved in this exciting new medium. Let us help guide you along the way. Click here now if you're ready to take control over your future by starting a podcast today.
Welcome back, Flipboard fam. This is your favorite coach, Coach Jeffrey, and I have two amazing guests here tonight. I'm going to start off with Sam, Kary, and I also have Mr. Thom Gibson. So I'm going to start with Sam first. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Okay, and also Thom, thank you for coming on the show, sir. Welcome.
It is my pleasure, Coach Jeffrey.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start off with Sam. Can you tell us, our listening audience, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a former classroom teacher. I taught in the Bay Area for a decade, and I also worked as an instructional coach for a long period of time as well. And I now support teachers with technology integration, and think that I come from a particular background that makes me a good messenger for that, because I actually spent a large majority of my career pretty skeptical about technology's role in education and pretty hesitant to use it myself. And so I am now out there helping other teachers who might feel the same way about teaching with technology, helping them see how it can be used in really powerful ways. So that's what we do full time now, support teachers with technology in the classroom. Didn't start out that way.
Excellent. And Thom, tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself.
I too am a former teacher of 10 years. Was not expecting to take this year off, but a couple of weeks before school started, I decided it was best for the family and got a lot more time to invest in the business. I taught middle school. I taught fifth grade for 3 years, and then middle school math, robotics, YouTube video production for 7 years. And then I've been making videos since 2008. I started my YouTube channel in 2015. I am a big tech nerd, so I'm like on the other side of the spectrum. Sam, I had a degree in audio engineering and have loved technology, and me and Sam have been friends for a long time. And so we decided we could make a larger impact if we joined forces and really worked together to serve as many schools and teachers and students as possible when it comes to using technology to do really cool and innovative work in the classroom.
Yes, man. I was bragging to Sam how I was going to start a YouTube channel or even a social media channel, let's put it like that. And I planned the video and I cut it down, and I thought I was going to be able to cut it up, and it was going to be an easy process. And then some kind of way I ran across you guys' feed, and I was like, these guys are really good. I quit. I'm not even going to do it.
That's the opposite effect it's supposed to have.
Yeah, I quit. What am I doing? These guys are good. They just share their stuff. It's wasting my time. I really enjoy your stuff. I found you on Instagram, and I want to start off this question with you, Thom. What made you decide to start working with the EdTech Classroom? If you can shed a little light on that.
Sure. I met Sam actually a couple years ago. We were both doing pretty somewhat similar content. I wasn't doing as much educational technology as much as more of general middle school teaching, focusing on how to create an engaging classroom, math classroom, robotics classroom, that kind of thing. And then me and Sam actually, he came on my podcast that I had at the time, and we met. We still haven't actually met in person. Yeah, in the time because I'm in Austin. He's out in California. Most of our interactions are actually asynchronous using an app called Marco Polo, where we'll send videos back and forth. And so we'll have an actual live meeting like once a week, but we're in communication every day. But even before that, like we were friends, and we were both in the teacher business side of things, of like, how are you doing the YouTube stuff? How's your online courses going? How are you pricing yourself with professional development? Because it's just hard to figure all that stuff out on your own, and you're like, there's someone else that's doing it. And so we would always just send messages back and forth. And then we started talking about a collaboration. And then one day, Tom, we could do this collaboration, but honestly, I would love to just have you as a partner of New EdTech Classroom. And we talked about what that would look like. And I was like, I've been doing a teacher business by myself for quite some time. And it's hard. It's really hard to do all this on your own. And I loved what Sam was doing. I love that he had already had a team starting to build up, and his brother does all the operations. He's got an editor, he's got a graphic designer. And it's, man, to be able to create content and help teachers and offload a lot of that other stuff that's just so time consuming. It was something that I was really drawn to. And the mission of New EdTech Classroom was really in line with what I was already doing. And it was more focused on the educational technology aspect. But the bigger picture is like, how do we do it? How do we help teachers do innovative work in the classroom? And that's what ended up bringing me to New EdTech Classroom.
Excellent. So, Sam, what made you create EdTech Classroom?
My personal experience coming to the world of education technology as a pretty deep skeptic and critic, and spending a lot of time banging my head against the wall, trying to figure out how to do a lot of the things that we know we're supposed to do in education, engaging students, providing them with a relevant education, and, trying to implement a lot of the strategies also that we're told are research based and that we should be doing, like formative assessment and differentiation, how to get students to actually, perform skills that are higher on Bloom's taxonomy. All those are really good on paper, but they're actually quite difficult to do, as any teacher knows. And so I came into the world of ed tech really through that path, looking for tools that would help me in my own classroom achieve some of those goals. And then I started, helping other teachers that I worked with through coaching, and started doing local conferences, and it spread from there. And then I decided, hey, you know what? I could reach a larger audience here potentially if I started a YouTube channel. So started that a little over 2 years ago. And now here we are.
Your content is amazing. And Sam, you said that you worked on your website, that you worked in a Title I school. COVID has hit everybody across America really deeply. But working in a Title I school and teaching with technology, how is that beneficial in today's time?
I think that, and when we're talking about students that come from underprivileged backgrounds, those are often students that are experiencing the other side of the digital divide. So they have grown up with less access to high speed internet. They often do not have a reliable device at home, or maybe they're sharing devices in a single household. And oftentimes, a lot of Title I schools do not have the funding to provide students with one-to-one devices. They don't have computer science classes, things like that. But there's one response to that, which is it's inequitable to teach with technology, because that is creating more of a barrier. And I think we feel very strongly the opposite, that in fact, it is incumbent upon us to do whatever we can in schools to help close the digital divide, in the same way that we have taken it upon ourselves collectively to address, say, skills gaps in reading or foundational skills in mathematics. I think we're far beyond it, but we are clearly at a place in our society and human history where tech skills are necessary for one to have the widest range of opportunities in your life. And so if students don't have the ability to gain those skills at home, or through extracurricular activities, then we feel like those skills should be taught in school.
Thom, you taught with robotics and math, and that is an interesting combination. It's not traditional. How do you get them to buy into teaching with technology and the correlation between using robotics and coding and then math?
I think the biggest buy-in for me with really anything that I've shared with teachers is student engagement, getting the students to bought in, because students are going to learn so much more if they're bought in. With my robotics class, that was really the first time that I started to do project-based learning, where I gave the students this project. Hey, you guys are going to create these sumo robots, and the competition is going to be this date. Here are some YouTube videos that are going to give you some inspiration. Here's a couple videos on how you can actually program your robot to do X, Y, and Z. Go for it. And then I was just there helping them. And then they're learning, and they're learning now these programming principles in the context of wanting to win the sumo robot competition, as opposed to learning these things inside of a vacuum and things like that. And I used in my math class, I used technology in ways around, I used it with teaching math, with doing more self-paced learning. But one of the things that I'm always talking to teachers about is having students implementing student jobs with their classrooms, and using technology for that. So I had students that were newsletter writers. Instead of me writing a newsletter to the families every week or every month, I had a student learn how to make a newsletter in Adobe Spark. And then they learned about branding and publishing and meeting deadlines. And then they'd send it to me. And then I would actually share that newsletter with the community and be like, hey, the newest issue of the Monthly Mathematician is out. We did the same thing with students learning how to podcast using an application called Soundtrap. We did the same thing with students learning how to, I had a motivational speaker in my class, and that one I implemented during the year of COVID, where the student would have have to record 1 minute of themselves every week doing some kind of motivational speech or a reflection on a quote. And then they would send that to me before the week started. And then I would share it with the class. I would just screen share, and I'd be like, it's time for Motivational Monday. And then hit my little air horn sound effect. And then that student would just be like, here's a quote, and this is what it says, and this is why I love it. And what was funny about one of the students, he's, you know what? And anyways, he would end his videos the same. He'd be like, stay motivated. And it's funny because he's learning branding there, like starting his videos and ending videos all the same. So people get in this routine and this rhythm and understand, like his videos. And so it was like using technology to not only build a class culture and give the students jobs that they like to do, but also to offload responsibilities from me onto the students, and also to teach students these 21st century skills of learning how to podcast, learning how to newsletter, learning how to build your own brand and create short videos and be on camera and speak in an engaging way. Those are all the reasons that I always use technology, because it engages the kids and it teaches them things that they need to be learning that we don't always have embedded in the standards and the curriculum outside of computer science class usually.
Yes, sir. Sam, what do you say to a teacher who's reluctant to get started with using technology in the classroom? I know Thom is from Texas, and he might be familiar with the good old, we have down here what we call the STAR test. And the STAR test is our standardized exam. I think you in California, of course, I know y'all have one because we stole it probably from y'all. But how do we get teachers to buy into, just the ones who are reluctant in using technology in the classroom?
I think it's a great question. And again, coming from that side of the aisle, I very much understand that perspective. And I think there are a couple of really tangible things that we can do. One is connecting technology integration directly to goals that teachers already collectively agree upon. So Thom named one: engaging students in project-based learning. You're going to be hard put to find a teacher that doesn't agree that's a good idea. They might actually not quite know how to do that, but they probably want to do that. And so if we can actually show teachers, this is how you can actually put that in place, and we're going to use technology tools to do that, then I think that's a really powerful way to win people over. And our approach to professional development, when we do workshops for schools, or when we work with in our academy, is also to try whenever possible to give teachers experiential learning experiences. If we're going to talk about the benefits of interactive text, for example, I'm not just going to talk about that. We're actually going to experience what it's like to chunk a text with a program and answer interactive questions, or do the same with a video. I think those kinds of experiences are very visceral and tangible and help educators see, oh, this is actually, just like a superior learning experience. So that's one. And then the other, just really quickly, that I would say is I think we shouldn't shy from the conversation that is clearly going on. It was going on pre-COVID, and it's going on now, about a lot of anxiety about the role of technology in the world and in society. And I'll speak for myself to say that I share, that anxiety as well. And I think if you are fearful of technology, right, that you should take it upon yourself to help educate students about how to use it appropriately, how to practice digital citizenship when they are in the digital world. Because simply saying we're going to limit screen time, we're not going to have students be on devices in school, that's not going to do anything to prevent students from using those devices outside of school. All we're doing is basically throwing them to the wolves without any education about the information they find there and how to interact in the digital world. I think, yes, the internet and technology is actually quite scary and threatening in some ways to like current ways of life, and we shouldn't shy from that.
I was going through your website and just going through your videos, and what I noticed off the bat is that they're based in pedagogy. And I could tell that y'all know what you're talking about. And so when I went to your website and I saw the TPACK model and experiential learning, what you talked about, you guys are using the TPACK model. Can you explain for some listeners who may not understand what TPACK is?
TPACK is a framework. It was developed by Punya Mishra. He currently teaches at ASU. And he was prior framework, which was looking at the intersection of pedagogy and content. So you cannot separate the two. So if you're thinking about, so TPACK stands for technological knowledge, pedagogical awareness, and content knowledge. And these are all areas of knowledge that Punya Mishra is arguing, I think, quite well, that a teacher needs to be able to operate within all of those spheres, ideally in the center, the intersection. And so if you're thinking about a person who has a lot of content knowledge, a teacher who has a lot of content knowledge, this might be your stereotypical or prototypical like college professor that knows everything about a subject. Perhaps they haven't been all that schooled in pedagogy. So they're just delivering content and, but they're like an encyclopedia. Then you have pedagogical awareness, which tends to be something that's more developed in like K-12 educators, where we have to have all these instructional techniques, otherwise the class is going to be nuts. But they're also research-based instructional techniques that are actually more effective at getting that content knowledge delivered to a student. It's not just lecture and listen. We have all these different formats for teaching and learning. And then when you pair that with technological knowledge, which might traditionally live over in the realm of the IT department, but when you can bring in knowledge of technological tools and what they can do, then you can enhance that whole interaction, make everything that you're doing with your teaching better and more innovative. I could go on for a while giving examples, but that's the gist of it. And then it can really be used, I think, as a way to analyze a lesson, to analyze your practice in general, and look at like, where are some elements that I could tweak this? Where do I need to gain more knowledge and understanding? And so I think it's just a really useful, actionable framework, which is what I like about TPACK.
I know of teachers who will assign students an essay. I need you to write me a 2-page essay. And then the students will go take a pen and piece of paper and write a 2-page essay. So if I was to use the TPACK model, what I understand is that I could tell that student to please write me a blog post and share that blog post about something of relevance to, I don't know, a group of students, and then share that on social media, and then try to get 2 or 3 people to comment back using a sentence stem of "I used to know, but now I know," or "I've learned," or a 4-2-1, 4 things you learn, 2 things that affects your future, and 1 thing you could tell somebody else. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And what she described, I think you could also think about that through the lens of the SAMR model, which is more strictly a model about technology integration. So looking at how can we take a particular activity and change that activity. So either substitute it, augment it, modify it, redefine it using technology. And so what I would add to your description, if you're thinking about TPACK, I would still start actually with the content knowledge piece, because it actually starts with what is the compelling thematic underpinning like knowledge that we are trying to get students to express through that essay. So you could have the most innovative pedagogical technique with the most innovative technological tools, but if at the end of the day, the essay or the final product is answering the question, what did you eat for dinner? Then the whole thing is like a moot point, right? So you actually need to start with looking at what are some thematic essential questions. So really evaluating what you're asking students to take away, and to ask yourself, if a kid were to say to you one day in class, why is what we're doing important? Why do I have to do this? So you have a compelling answer at the ready, because we're learning about human identity, or we're learning about like the nature of good and evil. Does it exist? Just like these bigger, more compelling questions that can be applied across all curricular areas, but sometimes they're not immediately there. And I think it's part of creating an engaged classroom is finding those questions and getting students to engage in that bigger picture thinking. And then once you have that, you can start to think about, okay, what are some pedagogical strategies I could put in place to help students articulate that thematic question? And how can I use technology in creative ways, like what you described, to get them to do that?
So I know that Thom is going to be presenting at Q pretty soon. Is that you right? Did I get there? So can you tell us a little bit about your presentation? And if I was sitting in the audience and I'm coming to get some understanding, like what am I going to be getting?
At Q, I'm going to be talking about essential student jobs, expounding on some of the ideas that I had mentioned a little bit earlier, and really just hitting on the idea of teachers feel that they are so overburdened and overworked and have to do everything. And I, even in the Q thing, I plan on asking teachers, like, what are all the tasks that you do during the day? And then just writing them all out. And it's like, how many of these tasks only you can do? And then they identify all the rest of them. And then we start thinking through, like, how can we actually make that some kind of a student job, whether it's writing the agenda up on the board, whether it's taking your laptop out of your backpack and then setting it up at the beginning of class and pulling up the class website up on the projector and showing the warm up, all while you get to stand at the front door and greet students and continue to build those relationships, because you're not stressing out about writing the agenda up on the board and getting your computer up and making sure the bell works on and trying. Now these kids are coming in and they're making a mess, and instead of getting that first interaction with them, like at the door, talking about how with the parent communication, whether it's a newsletter that's sent home or a podcast that's sent home, and going back to Sam's point, giving them a purpose for this. It's not just a podcast that they make and send to me and I listen to and then keep it on Google Drive and say, great job. But instead it's something that I share with our community. And so they do begin to learn about having a broader audience and putting more intentional work into that podcast, and like even creating like a landing page for the podcast with show notes, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, Coach Jeffrey. And that's the idea, is just getting teachers to start thinking through. I think when teachers think of class jobs, it's like line leader, caboose, person who waters the plants. Like, you can still have all of those jobs, but like, how can we find jobs that are new, that are going to actually take things off of our plate, that are going to serve a larger purpose, and that are going to excite the students and teach them these 21st century skills? And so that's going to be my presentation at Q. And then next Saturday, there's actually the biggest EdTech conference in Texas, the biggest free EdTech conference in Texas, TCCEA. I'll be giving a presentation live, one on the student jobs and another one on how to level up your screencasting, the screencasts that you make, those video lessons that you make for your students, to make them more engaging, to make them more fun for you, more fun for the students, and make the kids actually want to watch them. And so this next week's busy. Me and Sam were just kind of talking about, man, like everything just collided in this next week with a lot of different conferences and sessions and things like that. But we're both really excited.
I love that classroom management piece of just using the 21st century skills to organize your classroom, man. Oh my God, I could have used that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, hey, I really like that. I've never been to Q, and one day I'm gonna get there, man. Just whatever you do, save your presentation, man. Let me.
I will send you. It's virtual this year. It is
Oh,
virtual this year, so that's good.
okay.
Because originally I didn't even know about Q until Sam had told me about it, and then I had applied and
Yeah.
got accepted for the presentation. But
Excellent.
the TCCA one will be in person in Houston.
Excellent, excellent. That's in Houston. All right, great.
Mhm.
Hey, man. So again, I love your videos. I send as many people as I can to them, and so I know that you guys offer a lot of programs. And Sam, I think you guys have a coaching program. You have an entrepreneur program. You have a teacher online course that they can go through. I want to talk about your teacher course for like building capacity in teachers. What does that look like? Your teacher.
We recently rolled out our academy, and that is a combination of asynchronous learning as well as some live component and some ability for teachers to also get support and get questions answered. We have lots of other perks and things like that, like webinars that we have special for our members, and like access to be able to get extended trials for apps that you want to try and things like that. But really at the heart of it is what we believe to be a model of effective teaching practices, which is essentially what Thom was talking about, using video instruction, at least for part of your direct instruction, and then also having a live component. Most PD is done either pick one, right? So it's either like a live workshop, but then there's no follow-up, no real ability to like get questions answered, or it's this fully asynchronous online course, which I've also done, but that is also challenging because people want to follow up, people want to share resources with each other, get questions answered, and they want to be able to continue their learning, to continue building their skills. Okay, I just mastered that one. What comes next? We've built the first iteration of it, and it's still very much an iterative process, but our vision is to create a blended learning professional development experience for teachers where teachers can really experience ongoing skill building in the same way that we think students should be learning.
I'm just sitting up here shaking my head, going like this with both of y'all talking. And I know that when I edit the video, I'll be doing this. But hey, man, I love you guys' stuff, man. You guys put so much good information in each one of your videos, and I'm just thoroughly impressed with both of you. I just want to thank both of you coming on my show. We get to talk about pedagogy, we get to talk about 21st century skills, and that's what we were trying to really and truly address on this show. And I really think that you guys have a really great hold on that. And I just, as from somebody who's an admirer from a distance, man, I just want to tell you that keep up the good work. You guys are doing amazing things.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
so much.
much.
Appreciate it.
Sam, where can our listeners find you at?
So you can find us at newedtechclassroom.com would be the best place. And if you want to get a taster of our courses and how we approach professional development, we have a free course. We actually have a couple, but one is our starter kit for how to teach with technology. And you can get that at newedtechclassroom.com/starter kit. And then we're also on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all of that. Our biggest presence is on YouTube. So check out the YouTube channel too, New Ed Tech Classroom.
Yeah. Thom, where can our listeners find you at?
Yeah, I'm posting a lot via New EdTech Classroom, but the main channel that I'm still posting on my own is on Instagram. It's at Gibson Education.
Yeah, hey, I love it. Hey guys, anytime y'all want to come back on the show, then y'all just let me know. You have an open door. I love what you're doing, and I sing your praises to some of my teachers. Just thank you, and please keep up the good work. Stay encouraged. I know it's hard being an entrepreneur right now, but there are some of us who's out here like, man, them guys doing it. So just keep up the good work, okay?
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Coach Jeffrey. Yeah, appreciate it.
All right.